Welcome. Well, you're at home with Jim and Joy, and you are an important part of our EWTN family. And we're delighted that you have welcomed us into your home. We would love to hear from you, so send us an email with any question or a comment to jimandjoy@ewtn.com. Well, today we're going to bring you a show with the Dr. Thomas Hilgers. He was an outstanding, informative guest. He is affiliated with the Pope Paul VI Institute. You could go to the website popepaul6.com.
Enjoy. So much of Dr. Hilgers' work was inspired by Humanae Vitae, and we're in the 50th anniversary of Humanae Vitae, and EWTN has a website. It's ewtn.com/HV50, ewtn.com/HV50. Wonderful materials for you to understand Humanae Vitae, great teachings, videos, all about Humanae Vitae, which is about the transmission of human life, how critically important. Number one, that people understand that marriage is given to us for our mutual joy and benefit, but for the procreation of children, that's a part of marriage.
Right.
And we've separated that now. And Humanae Vitae says you can't separate those things. And there's a way to transmit human life. There are some things that are licit and illicit regarding contraception or sterilization and so on, and violations of chastity. And many of us, if not all of us, have violated in some way. But when we read Humanae Vitae, we say, oh, this is the standard. This is the beauty.
Right.
I repent of compromise in any way, or I didn't know. I was just ignorant about it. And Dr. Hilgers took that so seriously 50 years ago, and the instructions that Paul VI gave to scientists and to medical doctors to research this whole area of fertility and natural fertility and the teaching of the church, and to promote this. And he took this up and created the Pope Paul VI Institute, popepaul6v1.com. Go there for any questions about fertility, infertility, natural family planning, NAPRO, fertility, technology, and learning. So, and he did that so well. He's so informative. It's going to be an absolutely powerful show that you're about to see.
And the beautiful institute, what they do is they do patient information. They really inform and empower couples about the woman's fertility, if there are problems with conception, but everything that they do is according to the teaching of the Catholic Church. Not everything out there is good, and not everything out there is according to the teaching. So you want to do that in line with the teaching of the Catholic Church. And they just really educate, they work with you, they come up with a solution of solving, hopefully, that problem in your life.
It's the best of science coupled with true faith. Dr. Thomas Hilgers, Pope Paul VI Institute, coming up right now. Don't go away.
Well, it is our pleasure and privilege to have you with us, Dr. Hilgers. We are excited. And we've heard about you for years. We've seen you on EWTN. I think the last time I saw you were on Jeanette's show. And so you're familiar to our family at home at EWTN. But why don't you tell our family at home a little bit about yourself, your personal life, your marriage, your family, where you were educated, and then how did all of this start for you?
Well, first of all, it's great for me to be back, and I'm really happy for the invitation. Let's see, I've been married for how many years? Oh, my wife would kill me. 45 years, something like that. We have 5 children, 7 grandchildren, but they're all granddaughters. So we got to get working, you know. But anyway, it all got started when Humanae Vitae was published, actually. Because when I was in medical school, I was somehow interested in these issues. I don't know why, but and I kept reading about the commission that was releasing information, and I kept thinking they're going to change the church's position. So that's kind of what I was expecting. Then when Humanae Vitae came out, and it was an amplification, really, of the church's long-held teaching. And So I thought to myself, I should really get a hold of a copy of it and read it, because I didn't believe then even what the news people were saying about things. So
Yeah.
anyway, I did do that. I had to tell you, though, I went to the Newman Club chaplain at the University of Minnesota and asked him, where do I get a copy of Humanae Vitae? And his remark to me was, what do you want to read that kind of trash for? So that was my first encounter. But I did get a hold of it, and I read it, and I was instantly converted. It's a magnificent document. People don't realize how magnificent it really is, because one thing the church hasn't done a really good job of is teaching people about it. And so one of the things that really struck me at the end of there's 3 parts to Humanae Vitae, actually, and the third part is what's referred to as the Pastoral Directives. And in the Pastoral Directives, Paul VI called for 7 different groups to become involved. He identified them, and 2 of them I related to. One was men of science, one was physicians and healthcare professionals. And I had already done some research while I was in medical school, so I thought I should be able to do something like that maybe. So I started actually in 1968 with my first little research project.
It's hard to believe it's coming up on 50 years next July. Be 50 years of Humanae Vitae. When you read the document, in terms of your understanding at that point in your life as a Catholic, you're in med school, whatever's going on with you, was this for you like you understood that was there? This was your understanding already? Was it something new in it? What touched you and exploded in you to make you want to carry this? What was your impression of it?
Yeah, well, my impression was very positive, and what I've told a lot of people is that I read the whole thing, of course, but paragraphs maybe 7 to 11 or 12, something like that. I don't remember the exact paragraphs, but it's early in the document. And it was just teaching what the church had always taught. And it didn't even mention contraception or abortion or anything. It was about marriage. And I thought, well, I believe in that. So I already knew why it was that they couldn't change.
Right.
Because what was being said was so important. It was literally the foundation of marriage. It was the foundation of family. It was the foundation of having children, all of those things put together.
Yes.
And so contraception wasn't going to fit into that equation.
Right. And yeah, Paul VI really speaks about this being written in natural law. Of course, it's underlined through divine revelation. But he was saying, if I recall correctly, that this is not something that, this is in the created order.
Yeah.
It's not even that we've written this up in
Right.
terms of the church doing it. We're seeing what's going on here. This is etched in the natural order. And we didn't make the teaching, and we can't take the teaching away. This is how human life is transmitted through this conjugal union, this conjugal act, the unitive, the procreative, the gift of totality. Therefore, we can't change this. And it really sounds to me like it is a perennial, definitive teaching of the church.
Well, I've actually thought that for a long time, and as far as fertility is concerned, we've kind of gotten this notion that fertility is a disease. In fact, there was a paper given before Planned Parenthood many years ago by a Planned Parenthood doctor whose title of which was Pregnancy, the Second Most Common Venereal Disease. And fertility is not a disease. Fertility is something that's normal and healthy to us. Yes, it can go wrong. You can have infertility, you can have miscarriage, all sorts of other things can happen, but that's not basic fertility, that's abnormal fertility. That can be treated and effectively treated, I might add. But it's sort of like thinking of your thumb. If you don't like your thumb all of a sudden, I'm just going to get rid of that baby. I can get along fine with 4 fingers. No, you won't get along so well. And what our challenge is to learn about our fertility, understand it, and then to be able to learn to live with it, but live with joy and with happiness and glory, really, of what this gift is that we've been given.
Well, at the time of the writing of Humanae Vitae, we were discussing at that point the rhythm method.
Yep.
And maybe that is still, rhythm is a part of the overall understanding, I would think. But where have we gone from that time of the writing of Humanae Vitae in terms of fertility, understanding, and unleashing, as you say, the power of understanding that fertility?
Yeah. Well, you're right. It was a calendar rhythm method that anybody knew at that time, and they did submit, they had an organized effort to submit letters from married couples, and they were all upset with rhythm, which is understandable because it wasn't a very good system, but it did tell us that there were certain things that were inscribed in our creation that were important, and that fertility, in fact, was a normal, healthy process. We just didn't understand it very well. Well, what's happened in the last 50 years is there's been an incredible increase in our understanding of this, our ability to teach people how to live with their fertility, understand their fertility, make good and healthy decisions with regard to their fertility. And now we have 320 fertility care centers all over the United States. We're on 6 continents. We've trained 700 doctors. We've trained 3,000 teachers. I just got back, and in fact, the other day I finished a class that we had at the Institute with people from 12 countries and 17 states. And they're all coming here, coming to those courses with great joy and enthusiasm. I just have never met people like this in my life. They are so incredible. And these are going to be the new teachers, the new doctors. So it's
Because in med school, this is not what they're teaching.
never taught
right?
about, not one bit.
And so all you're taught is to write a script.
That's right.
And give her something for depression, give
Yeah.
her something for her fertility,
Yep.
put her on birth control, and instead of all of the beauty
Yeah.
of the Creighton model and to have that explained.
Yeah.
And so you're out there educating. So doctors have to come to you to get this education
Yeah.
so then they could go back throughout the world and represent it.
Right, exactly. And I always tell people that the revolution that occurred in 1960 when the birth control pill came out went so fast because all you really needed was a prescription pad and have an MD behind your name. And so it went quickly, but our challenge is much greater than that because we have to educate people. And so, and not only that, we have to train people to know what to educate people in. It's a whole different world out there now.
Right.
And it's a great challenge, and it's a great joy to be able to be involved in this effort. And so I'm pleased by that, and I think that that the growth of this is way beyond anything I could have ever imagined when we first started our efforts in this. I just can't tell you. EWTN had something to do with that too, because they
Yeah.
got the message out a little bit.
So Doc, what are the
beautiful.
key elements that are part of the Pope Paul VI Institute? Because we're talking and we're sharing. I mean, I know some of what you're alluding to, but I would say the vast majority of people, you know, in our country, in the world, maybe even in the church, don't get what you're saying, or what's
Right.
the difference. You know, you're talking about getting in touch with fertility so you can have a child, or postpone having a child. What isn't that contraception? Isn't that helping that along? I mean, what's so bad about this? Or what are your components? What's your philosophy? What's your foundation?
Yeah. Well, the day that Pope Paul VI died, which was August 6, 1978, is actually the day that my wife and I looked at each other. Sorry. I get really emotional about this stuff. I know what my daughter's saying right now. She always gives me a hard time about that. But it is, we literally looked at each other and said, we're going to build this institute. Everybody said it would be a big failure. And so it was 8 years before we could open it, 7.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. And we've been in existence now 31 years. And as a result of this whole effort, this new women's health science of NAPRO technology, natural procreative technology, where we look for the root causes of the underlying problem, we develop treatments that treat those root problems. We're not putting on people on birth control pills to cover it up. If you have menstrual cramps, cover it up. If you have endometriosis, cover it up. It goes on and on and on like that. And so it's really a whole new way of looking at women's health. It's a whole paradigm shift actually in women's health. And it'll take a while for everybody to be aware of it because medical students or medical schools aren't much interested in it. They don't care about the science. It's very interesting because there's strong science that supports this, and nobody in most of these schools really gives a darn about it. And it tells you something about all this stuff they talk about, you know, and I'm the new guy for women's health and all this stuff, and it's not so much the case. The women's health has suffered more than ever in the last 50 years because of contraception, abortion, in vitro fertilization, all of these things. We have answers to all of that now.
Now, for what happens, so let's say a doc has had an epiphany and a great understanding that, gosh, this is the way to go. But he's in a group, or she's in a group, with other docs that are writing prescriptions, and they really don't want to go this way.
Yeah.
What does that doc have to do?
Well, they can stop prescribing. That's not a, that by itself is not so much the issue, but it is difficult to work in a group where people don't see your way or don't agree with it. They're also the ones who don't look at the science of it, don't look at anything really that would help their foundation. So it goes in many different directions. I've had some who've stayed in the group and continued to be a witness, some who have not been able to stay in the group and had to go off on their own and you know, combine up or come together with other doctors who are more of like-minded. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go about it, but they don't usually go backwards. And that's impressive, I think.
Yeah, especially in the Catholic community, you know, when you say, I'm a pro-life doctor. Well, what does that mean when you're a pro-life doctor? So as you're training and you're discipling men and women, when they take that tag, I'm a pro-life doctor, what does that mean for them?
Usually it means that they're against abortion. And they haven't thought much further than that. And they don't think contraception is a part of that whole issue because they think contraception is the answer to abortion. But there's lots of data now available that says that contraception just leads to more abortion. And they have to look at this data. They have to start using their scientific brains instead of the emotion of it all. And you also have to want to really help people. And that's a little bit more work than writing a prescription sometimes. But it's really glorious work. I mean, not a day goes by that I don't have something really important happen that's really special in my life with this work. And other people too who are being trained in it.
You know, it's interesting, you're saying abortion really does follow contraception. And we see this at our medical center so frequently. I'd say maybe 75% of the women who come in, you know better than I do, Joy, but would say that they're on some form of contraception and that it's failed. There's a failure rate, and it's a larger failure rate if you're not using these things right. But they really feel like this is a wrongful conception when it takes place. That this child is wrongly conceived. We were working against this conception. Therefore, this justifies we didn't want this, and that's their rationale.
It is.
Now, they're not thinking through it totally. They haven't seen the baby. That's what we're trying to do there, to say, let's get an ultrasound, let's talk about this, let's take a look at what we're doing here. But you're so right that wherever contraception is implemented throughout the world, abortion follows after it because it's wrongful. And just that term, against conceiving, against conceiving, against conception. Therefore, if we conceive, then it says in our laws now that we must have abortion because we rely so heavily in America on contraception. They must have this option, you know, read killing the preborn child. How is natural family planning different than contraception? Because even with pro-life people, sometimes they say, well, NFP is contraception anyway, so we're for life, but we still use contraception. And what you're telling me, it's the same thing. What would you say to them?
Well, in the Creighton model system, the couples learn when they're fertile in a cycle and when they're not fertile in a cycle. So if they want to get pregnant, they don't have to stop using it. They keep using it, and they can become pregnant. So that, in a way, in a simple way, explains the difference. You don't take the birth control pill to get pregnant. You don't take an IUD because you get pregnant. You don't use a condom because you want to get pregnant. So that's a simplistic kind of difference. But once women and their husbands, especially, it's amazing what husbands do. They get to learn about their fertility. They're part of this as well. It's not that they're foreign to it all. And they see it, and they see the miracle of it, and it changes their heart to a great extent. It's amazing. And this is something that we can't let go of. We have to make it better and better for people, and it's really terrific.
Okay, when you say understanding a woman's fertility, please just explain to us simply what you're speaking about scientifically.
Well, with the Creighton model system, we're teaching couples how to observe the mucus patterns that occur around ovulation time. These are natural occurring discharges that are always there. They've been there since the dawn of women. And now we know how to interpret that. We have a universal language to describe it all. And so we can identify those days that are not fertile. We can identify those days that are fertile. And so really what we're teaching couples is to make good and healthy decisions. And this is completely consistent with Humana Vitae, incidentally. Humana Vitae says that responsible family planning is very much should be in the hands of the married couple, not the government or a variety of other people, doctors, for example. And so by learning all of these things, they can make really good decisions on whether to have another child, or perhaps it's a time in their life where they can't have another child, and they can make a decision not to have a child at this point. It's not contraception at all, because you're actually not doing anything to make it worse. In fact, what happens, because they learn about their fertility, they may actually identify some abnormalities that they didn't know existed, and you can, with medical treatment, you can overcome those. And we have situations now where you can be treated and never have a miscarriage ever again, even though you probably would have miscarried almost every pregnancy.
Right.
So for the first time, we can treat this as it's discovered before they're pregnant, and then they can get pregnant and never have to suffer through a miscarriage. It's really, really impressive.
Doc, we have a couple of minutes left. In this area of education and what you're doing in the Paul VI Institute, how is this spreading? How is people coming to you? Are you encouraged that there's really a move about regarding the culture of life in this way?
Well, I think there is. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to measure, but just the fact that we have the internet, which has its own problems, but at least for us, being on the website, and our website's not the greatest, but it does get the word out. Social media has gotten the word out. We do train a lot of teachers and doctors, and they're all over the country and world now, actually. And that's gotten the word out more and more. So, it's definitely growing and building. We just have, there's so much more work to do, and that's why we're training right now the next generation of doctors. In fact, I mentioned my daughter, Teresa. She just finished her fellowship at the Pope Paul VI Institute and does robotic surgery and all of the naprotechnology.
I hope she was treated
work.
very well there.
She's treated extremely well.
Doc, when we go to your website, you have a listing of the Creighton model, naprotechnology, and you click on those, and then it seems like it's almost like a whole nother website.
Yeah.
Do you find people coming to you that aren't Catholic, that aren't Protestant, more conservative, just secular people saying, I want to know more about naprotechnology, I want to know more about the Creighton model?
Yeah.
I'm not religious, but
Yeah.
I think this is holistic and it's healthy.
Yeah. There's a couple things about that. About 25% of the people who come to us are not Catholic, and so it's a good-sized population. And I'm happy to see them. I have no problem with that at all. However, I must say that I would really like to make this proliferating in the Catholic community, because if the Catholics would be able to see this better and be able to do it and see the benefits in their own life, they would then be able to proselytize the whole world. And I'm not saying that because I don't want to take care of anybody else. That's not it at all. But I'm not at all afraid of being able to take care of Catholics.
Dr. Hilgers, thank you so much for your great and prolific work in building a new culture of life. God bless you, your family, this great work. May it ever grow deeper and expand more fully.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break. Plenty more to come. Please don't go away.
Welcome back. Well, I know that you enjoyed that show with Dr. Hilgers. He certainly offers pro-life hope to couples that are struggling with infertility. Well, next week, EWTN will be bringing you the complete coverage of the World Meeting of Families. On At Home with Jim and Joy, we will be revisiting some of our shows with Dan and Amber DeMott, and who also help with Catholic couples who are striving to be holy through their home retreats. And remember, keep it on EWTN. You're always at home with Jim and Joy. God bless you.